Greetings YouTube family, welcome to the Southern African History Channel. Today we're going to be looking at the concessions that constituted in the making of Rhodesia. There were many concessions which were signed by Lobengula and various white people in the 19th century, and these treaties were the Baines Concession of 1871, the Tati Concession of 1870, the Lippett's Treaty or Lippett's Concession of 1890, the Grobler Treaty of 1887, the Moffat Treaty of 1888, and the Tati Concession of 1888. On the last episode, we were looking at the Moffat Treaty of 1888, and today we're going to be continuing by looking at the Tati Concession of 1870, the Grobler Treaty of 1887, and the Tati Concession of 30 October 1888. Before we continue, I think it is good to get a clear definition of the term concession. A concession is a thing that is granted especially in response to demands. The Tati Concession of 1870. The Tati Concessions land was a concession created in the borderlands of the Matabele Kingdom and the Bechuanaland Protectorate. In 1864, gold was discovered by Europeans in the Tati River area, also known as the Tati Goldfields, and in 1870 the concession was made by Matabele King Lobengula to Sir John Swinburne's London and Limpopo Mining Company. This treaty gave the British rights to search for gold and other minerals on the land between Shashi and Ramakwiban rivers. However, in 1880 the concession was revoked for failure to pay the annual fee, and the concession was granted to the Northern Light Mining Company, a syndicate formed by Daniel Francis, Samuel Howard Edwards, and others. The Northern Light Company was later renamed to the Tati Concessions Limited. After 1893, Tati land was detached from Matabeleland and placed under the jurisdiction of the British Resident Commissioner of the Bechuanaland Protectorate. Tati Concessions Limited was given the right by the British government to issue its own revenue stamps in 1896 for the use of legal instruments. On 21 January 1911, Tati land was annexed to Bechuanaland via the Tati Concessions Land Act, with special agreement to preserve rights of access for Rhodesian railways. The latest act governing the regulating this concession is that of the Tati Concessions Land Act of 1970. The most controversial provision in this act can be found in Section 6, which states that the right to all mining and precious stones under the land in the Tati district is reserved to the Tati Concessions Limited, and also the right of prospecting for and working the same. The effect of this section is that mineral rights are bestowed unto this body, which is unlike other mineral rights in Botswana, which are governed by the Section 3 of the Mines and Mineral Act of 1999, to the effect that all minerals within Botswana, with the exception of the Tati Concessions, are the property of the Republic of Botswana. The Grobler Treaty of 1887. This treaty was signed between Piet Grobler and King Lobengula in 1887. Piet Grobler was representing the Boer Republic of the Transvaal. The treaty was also known as the Friendship Treaty, and it stipulated that there will be everlasting peace between the Amandebele and the Boer Republic. It was a lie. There was never going to be everlasting peace since they had deceived Lobengula. The treaty recognized Lobengula as the paramount chief and king. This statement was true and genuine because Lobengula was the ruling king and had conquered other states, and in this treaty Lobengula was also supposed to be an ally from then and onward. The treaty committed Lobengula to provide military assistance to the Transvaal or to the Boers whenever asked, which was in the face of British threat. It was not a balanced statement because the Boers were not made to provide any assistance, which was also a sign of selfishness. They were only interested in their own interests and hidden agendas. There was to be a permanent representative of the Transvaal in Bulawayo, but they did not ask Lobengula to send his representatives to the Transvaal, and Lobengula was to protect Boers who visited Zimbabwe. Lobengula was illiterate. He could not identify whom a Boer was, but no clause allowed Lobengula to send his people to the Transvaal under the Boers' protection. King Lobengula was required to catch and repatriate all criminals who escaped the Transvaal. Hunters and adventurers would be allowed into Lobengula's territory without hindrance. The Boer Republic would appoint a representative who would stay in Lobengula's kingdom. Lobengula was not allowed to administer justice to the Boers in the kingdom. The content of the whole treaty was in favor of the Boers, and it gave nothing in return to King Lobengula. The Moffat Treaty of 1836. It was signed between King Mzilikazi and Robert Moffat. Robert Moffat was John S. Moffat's father, and this treaty was plainly a friendship treaty. The terms of the treaty included that there was going to be friendship between King Mzilikazi and Robert Moffat. It also allowed whites to move in and settle into the Zimbabwean area. The Rhodes Concession of 30 October 1888. Rhodes thought that King Lobengula could cancel the Moffat Treaty, so he came up with a plan on how to secure Zimbabwe. He had to secure mining rights, hence he needed the concession. This led to the sending of Charles Rudd and his negotiators to go and seek a concession with King Lobengula called the Rhodes Concession. The team consisted of Rockford Maguire, a very close friend of Rhodes and a law graduate from Oxford, Francis Thompson, an interpreter fluent in Nguni languages, and Charles Rudd, a business associate of Rhodes in the De Beers mining company, and he was also a team leader. When the team arrived, they found Lobengula in a no-negotiation mood, as he was under pressure from his Amabuto who wanted to kill whites in the Amandebele state. They could not talk to King Lobengula for a month, but they remained persistent. Charles Helm was a missionary from the London Missionary Society, and he was already operating in the Amandebele state. He was also Lobengula's close ally, but he was bribed by the team. He supported the Rhodes concession seekers and pleaded on their behalf to the king. The concession seekers also bribed Loche and Sikombo, who were senior indunas, and these began supporting them too. Sir Shepard also tricked Lobengula into signing the treaty, as he said that they were sent by the British Queen. At the end, the concession was signed with Charles Helm as the witness, and the written terms of the Rhodes concession were Lobengula received £100 per month. King Lobengula was to get 1,000 rifles. King Lobengula was also to get 100,000 rounds of ammunition. A gunboat was to be placed or stationed in the Zambezi River. A minimum of 10 unarmed British soldiers were to be allowed into the kingdom at a time. The whites were to do what they deemed necessary. The whites were granted all metals and minerals in the Matebele land, and the non-written terms of the Rhodes concessions were Lobengula promised that no more than 10 men would enter his kingdom. The whites agreed to follow the Amandebele rules. The British also promised to help King Lobengula defend his state when required. There was to be entrance of British men and weapons before payment of the 1,000 promised rifles to King Lobengula. A concession notice was to be published in the newspaper to notify other European powers, and the whites were supposed to dig one hole and go back to South Africa. King Lobengula was deeply affected by this, and in his reaction to the Rhodes concession, he wrote a letter complaining to the Queen that he had not given away his country, and the letters went with his indunas Mshete and Bambeyani. The Queen told Lobengula that he was supposed to have given a cow, not the head, to a stranger. Lobengula even killed Loche and Sikombo for betraying him. He even published notices in the newspapers explaining that he had not sold his country and sent a chance party to follow Maguire, but it was to no avail. He invited many explorers to his court to explain himself, but it did not stop the occupation of Zimbabwe. King Lobengula then signed the Lippert Treaty to frustrate Rhodes, but Rhodes bought the treaty. The Lippert Treaty granted exclusive rights to German financer Lippert for 100 years. Okay, thank you guys for tuning into this episode. The next episodes we're going to be looking at is the colonization of Zimbabwe. I would also want to take this moment to thank those guys who subscribed to my channel. It means a lot to me, and I deeply appreciate you guys. For those who haven't subscribed, please go and click the subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications. And till we meet again, peace.